This is what I think of fraud. Patricia Brennan's voice cut through the marble lobby like a blade through silk. Her hands gripped the check, $10 million reduced to paper between manicured fingers, and tore it clean down the middle. The sound was small, intimate, the kind of noise that shouldn't carry, but in the cathedral silence of Rivergate National Bank, it echoed off Italian tile and vaulted ceilings like a gunshot. She tore it again, smaller pieces. Then again, blue and white fragments drifted onto the counter. Account numbers, half a name. Terrence R. Blackwell split between two scraps that would never fit back together. The amount, 10,000,000 scattered like confetti at a wedding nobody wanted. The man standing across from Patricia didn't swing, didn't shout. He watched 2 years and 4 months of his life land in pieces on a bank counter, then put his shaking hands deep in his jacket pockets so nobody in that lobby would see them betray him. 40 feet away, near the brass-handled entrance, security guard Darius Webb already had his personal cell phone out. The person on the other end of his whispered call would walk through that door in 18 minutes and speak one word that would end Patricia Brennan's career before the sun went down. But that was later. This was now. And now, right now, at 3:47 on a Thursday afternoon in May, Terrence Blackwell stood in a building that didn't want him and tried to remember how to breathe. 7 hours earlier, the alarm never went off because Terry never said it. His body knew. 5:32 in the morning, same as every morning for 2 years and 4 months. Eyes open, ceiling, water stain in the corner shaped like a boot, dark brown at the edges where the drywall had absorbed moisture and given up. The landlord promised to fix it 16 months ago. Terry stopped calling about it after month 9. He swung his legs out of bed, floor cold, kitchen dark. The coffee maker sat on the counter like a relic from another decade. White plastic yellowed at the seams, power button that stuck if you didn't press it just right. He filled the reservoir, pressed the button. It clicked twice, wheezed like it was considering retirement, then started dripping. Another day it decided to work. From the drawer beside the sink, he pulled a brown paper bag, wrote Amara in black marker across the front. Inside went the same lunch he'd packed for 2 years and 4 months. Peanut butter sandwich on wheat bread, apple slices in a Ziploc juice box. She never once said she was tired of it. That was the thing about his daughter. 8 years old and already knew how to carry weight without being asked. 6:04. Her door opened down the hall. Small feet on hardwood. "Morning, Daddy. Morning, baby." She came into the kitchen with her hair down, wearing the school uniform that was mostly clean, shoes that were secretly a full size too small. He'd noticed 3 weeks ago when she started walking different. Slower, careful, a tiny hitch in her step when she thought he wasn't looking. New shoes cost $47. He had 41 in checking, so she wore the old ones and neither of them talked about it. Not after today, he thought. After today she gets whatever shoes she wants. After today everything changes. He sat her in the chair, pulled the elastic off his wrist, gathered her hair into a ponytail. 3.5 years ago, he'd learned this from a YouTube video at 1 in the morning, 2 weeks after Ashley left. He'd watched it 11 times, practiced on a mop handle, almost cried when he finally got it right on Amara's head. Now he could do it in 30 seconds with his eyes half shut. "Mrs. Patterson's picking you up today." Amara looked up at him, brown eyes that saw more than he wanted her to see. "I've got something to do in the city. What kind of something?" "Boring grown-up stuff. That's what you always say, because it's always true." She almost smiled. Almost. Poured her cereal. He poured the milk. They ate in silence. The good kind. The kind that doesn't need filling. Terry watched her across the table and saw the toothpaste on her chin and didn't mention it, because he'd been staring and she'd noticed. "Daddy, you're staring again. You've got toothpaste on your chin." She wiped it. He hadn't been staring at toothpaste. He'd been looking at his daughter and trying to hold the weight of what today meant without letting it show on his face. After today, everything changes. After today, she never wears shoes that hurt. After today, they leave this apartment with the boot-shaped water stain in the refrigerator that sounds like a diesel engine and the heat that works 60% of the time if you're lucky. After today, if today goes right. 7:23, 3 blocks to the bus stop. Other parents were already there with their Lexus sedans and BMW SUVs lined up along the curb like a luxury car show. Clean coats, take-out coffee in cups with logos, conversations about weekend plans in voices that never worried about the price of anything. They nodded at Terry the way you nod at a mailbox. You see it every day, but you don't really look at it. He was furniture. The single dad in the same Carhartt jacket since October, sleeves frayed at the cuffs. The guy who always looked like he'd just gotten off a double shift even when he hadn't. Mrs. Palmer was there with her daughter Emma, Amara's best friend. She saw Terry, saw Amara, and put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "We're running late, sweetie." They weren't running late. The bus wasn't even visible yet. But Mrs. Palmer steered Emma 3 steps away, creating distance the way you'd create distance from something unpleasant, and Terry felt every inch of those 3 steps in his chest. Amara hugged him, squeezed hard, harder than usual, like she knew something was different even if she didn't know what. "Love you, Daddy. Love you too, baby. Have a good day, okay?" She climbed the steps, found her seat, waved through the window. He waved back. The bus turned the corner and she was gone, and Terry stood there with his hands in his pockets, while around him the other parents got into their cars and drove away. Nobody offered him a ride. He'd stopped expecting them to 6 months ago. He walked home alone. 2 years and 4 months ago, Terry was drowning. It was September 2023 and he made $18.25 an hour working IT. Help desk for TechFlow Solutions, a company that made software for dental offices and didn't care about anything except whether you could reset passwords and sound friendly on the phone. After taxes, after rent, after Amara's school and groceries and electricity and keeping 2 human beings alive in a city that charged you for the privilege, he had about $40 a week left over, sometimes less, sometimes nothing. It hadn't always been like this. Once, back when life made sense, Terry had been somebody. Summa cum laude from Carnegie Mellon, computer science degree that opened doors other people couldn't see. 4 years at Stratton Defense Systems in D.C., building cybersecurity architecture for government contractors, pulling down $127,000 a year plus benefits. He had a house, had a wife, had a future that looked like something other than counting pennies at the grocery store. Then April 2019 happened. Amara was 3 years and 8 months old. Terry came home from work at 6:15 on a Tuesday and knew something was wrong the second he opened the door. The apartment was too quiet. Ashley's coat wasn't on the hook. Her shoes weren't by the door. He found Amara in her bedroom, sitting on the floor with her stuffed rabbit, staring at the open closet. All of Ashley's clothes were gone. Jewelry box empty, dresser drawers cleaned out like she'd never lived there at all. "Where's Mommy's dresses? Mommy had to go away for a while, baby. How long is a while?" Terry didn't have an answer, still doesn't. A while turned into 4 years and 9 months and counting. And Amara stopped asking about it after 18 months when she finally understood that Mommy wasn't coming back. Ashley left an email, not a note, not a conversation. An email time-stamped 11:47 p.m. the night before, sent from an account Terry didn't know she had. "I can't do this anymore. The crying, the diapers, the sameness. I'm 28 and I feel 50. I need to find myself again. Don't try to find me." She'd also emptied their joint savings account, $14,300. Gone. Along with her jewelry, her clothes, and every photograph of herself she could find. Terry hired a lawyer he couldn't afford, filed for full custody of a child he already had full custody of, and restructured his entire life around a daughter who asked questions he couldn't answer. He couldn't do the DC job anymore. 60, 70 hours a week, on-call weekends, classified projects that meant he couldn't talk about what made him late for dinner. That life required 2 parents or none. Single father with a 4-year-old daughter meant different choices, so he made them. Quit Stratton. Moved to Stonebridge where rent was cheaper and nobody cared about his resume. Found the TechFlow help desk position because it was 8 to 5, no weekends, no on-call rotation. $18.25 an hour, $153,000 less than he used to make, but it let him drop Amara at school and pick her up and be home when she needed him. He learned everything the hard way. How to do ponytails from YouTube at 1 in the morning. How to get bubble gum out of hair without scissors, baking soda, and patience. What to say when she had nightmares. What to do when she spiked a fever of 102.4 at 1:47 a.m. and the pharmacy was closed and he had $9.73 in his account. He figured it out. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but he figured it out. Then January 2024, he found the forum. Black Circuit wasn't the kind of place you stumbled into by accident. It was dark web territory, invitation only, encrypted 6 ways from Sunday. Terry had an old login from his Stratton days, back when he'd been somebody who needed to know what the people on the wrong side of the law were building. He went there looking for freelance work, anything that paid better than $18.25 an hour, anything that let him use the skills gathering dust in his head. He found a posting that made his hands stop moving on the keyboard. Private equity fund seeks independent contractor. Zero-knowledge cryptographic architecture. Military-grade encryption protocols, custom build, no existing frameworks, $10 million. Anonymous escrow, 24-month timeline, serious inquiries only, $10 million. Terry read it 3 times, then he read it again. It sounded like a scam, a honeypot, a setup for something that would end with federal agents at his door. But the technical specifications were too detailed to be fake. Whoever posted this knew exactly what they wanted, and exactly how impossible it was to find someone who could build it. He wrote a response, careful, professional, outlining his background without identifying himself, his capabilities without overselling. 24 hours later, he got a reply: build us a prototype encryption module in 48 hours, specifications attached. If you succeed, we talk contract. The specifications were brutal. Zero-knowledge proof protocols, custom cryptographic functions, a system that could move money across borders without leaving fingerprints, that could verify identity without storing data, that could not be traced and could not be broken no matter who came looking. Terry built it in 34 hours and 17 minutes. He sent it off at 3:21 a.m. on a Saturday morning while Amara slept in the next room. Fell asleep at his desk. Woke up at 9 with sunlight in his eyes and a message waiting. Contract attached. Review and sign if acceptable. Payment on completion via Meridian Capital Escrow Services. Legal. Clean. Anonymous both parties. The contract was 63 pages of dense legal language, but it boiled down to something simple. Build what we need. Deliver in 24 months, receive $10 million. Don't ask questions. Don't try to find out who we are. We won't try to find out who you are. Terry read every word, checked the escrow company, legitimate, registered in the Cayman Islands, used by people who needed to move serious money without leaving trails, checked the technical specs again. This was real work for real people who had real reasons to stay invisible. It was legal. Barely. The kind of legal that lives in the space between what's written down and what's enforced. But it was legal. He signed it at 11:13 p.m. on a Tuesday. Amara's spelling homework was spread out on the kitchen table next to his laptop. For the next 2 years and 4 months, Terry lived 2 lives. By day, tired single dad, help desk calls from 8 to 5. School pickup at 3:15, grocery store math, counting every dollar, putting things back when the total got too high. Bedtime stories, checking the mail for bills he couldn't pay. By night, someone else entirely. 9:17 p.m., after Amara's door closed and her breathing settled into the deep rhythm of sleep, Terry opened his laptop and disappeared into code. Some nights until 2 a.m., some nights until 3. Some nights the sky started turning gray and he realized he'd worked straight through and had 90 minutes until Amara's alarm went off. Weekends when Amara went to Emma's house, he worked 10 hours straight. 12, 16. Coffee and silence and the glow of a screen in an empty apartment. There were nights he almost quit. The night in March when Amara got sick, threw up 3 times between midnight and 2 a.m. He held her hair, cleaned the bathroom floor, carried her back to bed, read her a story until she fell asleep. Then he walked to his desk and stared at the screen for 10 minutes before his hands started moving again, because the deadline wouldn't wait. The deadline didn't care that his daughter was sick. The morning he fell asleep at the keyboard and woke up with Amara standing beside him in her pajamas. "Daddy, you fell asleep at your computer again." "Just working on something, baby." "Is it important?" He looked at her. Bare feet on cold floor, hair messy, eyes that trusted him completely. "Yeah. It's the most important thing I've ever done." She brought him a glass of water, set it beside the laptop, went back to bed without another word. He sat there looking at that glass of water for a long time. And he made a promise. Not to God, not to the universe, to himself. This will be worth it. Every late night, every hour away from her, every sacrifice. When this is done, she'll never wear shoes that hurt. She'll never eat the same lunch every day because we can't afford better. She'll never hear me on the phone begging the electric company for 1 more week. This will be worth it. May 6th, 11:52 p.m. Terry hit the final keystroke and uploaded the last module to the encrypted server. The system was complete. 2 years and 4 months of work compressed into lines of code that would do exactly what they were supposed to do and nothing else. Confirmation came through at 11:59 p.m. Delivery accepted. Verification in progress. He sat in the dark kitchen and waited. Amara was asleep. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the drip from the bathroom faucet he kept meaning to fix. 3:41 a.m., May 7th. His phone lit up. Wire transfer confirmed. Meridian Capital Escrow Services, amount $10 million. Terry put his head in his hands and cried. Not sadness, relief. The kind that cracks you open because you've been clenched so tight for so long that letting go feels like your body is breaking apart. The check arrived by courier at 9:17 a.m. on May 8th. He signed for it in his pajamas, put it in a white envelope, put the envelope in the desk drawer, made Amara's lunch, walked her to the bus, came home and stared at the drawer for 20 minutes. He left it there for 2 days, let it become real, let the number stop looking like a mistake. Today, May 10th, was the day. 2:47 p.m. Rivergate National Bank sat on the corner of 5th and Grant, like it had been there since the city was founded. Stone facade, Corinthian columns, brass handles on glass doors polished to a mirror shine, the kind of building that made you feel small just looking at it. Terry stopped outside, took a breath. A businessman in an Armani suit, $2,800 if Terry had to guess, was walking toward the entrance, saw Terry reaching for the door, held it open for the man behind him, also in a suit, also white. Let it swing shut. Terry caught the door, pulled it open, walked in. The lobby was cold and quiet, air conditioning set to 68. Italian marble floors that clicked under every footstep. Vaulted ceiling that made voices echo. He got in line behind the velvet ropes. Security guard near the entrance. Name tag said Webb. Mid-30s, military posture, arms crossed. His eyes swept the room in a steady pattern. Trained movement, automatic. They passed over Terry, paused, came back. Terry kept his hands visible. He knew how this worked. The line moved slow. Ahead of him, a businessman in a different suit was arguing with a teller about wire fees. "This is unacceptable. I've been a premier client for 17 years. 17. The teller, young woman, name tag Ashley P., nodded with practiced sympathy. "I completely understand, sir. Let me see what I can do." "Sir, the word just rolled right out when you were wearing the right clothes." Terry waited. He was good at waiting. Then he heard heels on marble, sharp, deliberate. A woman crossed the lobby from a door marked management. Mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Navy suit that cost more than Terry made in a month. Name tag, Patricia Brennan, branch manager. She scanned the room the way a hawk scans a field, every corner, every face, every transaction. Her eyes landed on Terry. He watched it happen, the calculation. One look, jacket, boots, hands, posture, and the verdict was in. He'd seen that look 1,000 times. Job interviews, parent-teacher conferences, every room where people had more than he did. The quick, quiet judgment, the invisible stamp. Not one of us. She looked away, walked to the teller window where Terry would be served next, leaned in, whispered something. The teller, young woman, red hair, name tag Megan, glanced at Terry, nodded. When his turn came, Megan started to speak. "How can I help?" Patricia stepped in. "I'll handle this." Up close, her perfume was sharp, expensive. Her smile was a wall. "Good afternoon." The voice was smooth, professional, ice underneath. "Afternoon, I need to deposit a check, of course." "Do you have an account with us?" She stopped, looked over his shoulder. "Not yet." "I see. We have procedures for new accounts, especially for large deposits. Security reasons. You understand?" "I understand." Her eyes traveled down his body and back up. Slow, deliberate, not hiding it. "May I ask the amount?" Terry took the envelope from his jacket, set it on the counter between them. She picked it up, slid the check out with 2 fingers, carefully, like it might be dirty. Her eyes moved across the paper. His name, the issuing bank, the account number, the amount. 3 seconds of silence. Then she looked up and everything in her face changed. "This is a joke, not a question." "Statement." She held the check up between 2 fingers. "This is $10 million and you're standing here trying to deposit it." The businessman at the next window stopped mid-complaint. The older couple behind Terry went rigid. Every conversation in the lobby dropped by half volume. "That's correct. Where did you get this?" "I earned it. Earned it." She repeated the word like it tasted bad. "Doing what?" "Software development, security systems, software," the way she said it, like he'd said unicorn farming. "And your employer?" "I'm independent." Patricia set the check down, placed both palms flat on the counter, leaned in. "So you're telling me that you, an independent software developer from..." She glanced at something. His driver's license, maybe? "The West Side, earned $10 million and you just walked in here to deposit it. Wearing..." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Her eyes said the rest, the jacket, the boots, all of it. Behind him, the businessman laughed, short, quiet, but in that marble lobby everyone heard it. Terry's hands went still at his sides. Something cold moved through his chest, not anger, older than anger, deeper, the thing that builds in you when you've spent your whole life being measured by people who never once asked what you're carrying. "Are you going to verify the check?" "I'm going to do my due diligence, sir." The word "sir" like a weapon. "Then do it. Don't tell me how to do my job." She picked up the phone, dialed. The lobby was silent now. Every teller had stopped typing. Every customer was watching. Yes, this is Patricia Brennan at Rivergate National Stonebridge Branch. I need to verify a check, escrow account. She read the numbers. Her voice was clipped, professional, the voice of someone who knew she was right. Amount is 10 million. Pause. She listened. I see. And the account is active? Another pause. No, I'm asking because the individual presenting it is atypical. Atypical. The word dropped into the lobby and nobody picked it up. She hung up. The account exists. Good. Then there's no problem. The account exists, but they cannot verify this specific check without the account holder confirming the transaction directly. I have documentation, wire transfer receipt, contract, everything you need, I'm sure you do. Patricia picked up the check again. But anyone can forge a contract, anyone can fake an email. People walk in here every day with stories. This isn't a story, so you say, call them back. Have them contact the account holder. That could take days. I'll wait. She looked at him, held his eyes, made her decision. I can't accept this check. Why not? Because I have reason to believe it's fraudulent. The word cracked across the lobby like a whip. Fraudulent. In a bank, that word changes everything. Changes the air. Changes every face in the room. Changes what you are. 1 second ago, Terry was a customer. Now he was a suspect. He felt it happen. The businessman stepped back. The older woman clutched her purse to her chest. Darius Webb's hand moved to his radio. Every eye in the lobby was on Terry, and not one of them saw a man depositing a check. They saw exactly what Patricia Brennan wanted them to see. I can provide whatever documentation you need. His voice didn't rise, didn't shake. I'm sure you could produce all kinds of paperwork. Let me speak to your supervisor. I am the supervisor. Your regional manager, then. Whoever's above you. I don't need to involve anyone else. She smiled. It was the coldest thing in that building. I'm rejecting this transaction. Company Policy, Section 12, Subsection 4. I have the authority to refuse any deposit I deem suspicious. And I deem this very suspicious. You haven't verified anything. You've looked at me and made a decision based on... He stopped, because finishing that sentence meant saying it out loud, meant naming the thing they both knew was happening, meant forcing every person in that lobby to face what they were watching. Patricia finished it for him, based on the fact that you don't look like someone who has $10 million. She held up the check, both hands, thumbs on top, fingers underneath. The way you hold something you're about to destroy, Terry saw it coming. His stomach dropped before she moved. Don't. Patricia looked at him, looked right at him, smiled. This is what I think of fraud. She tore it in half. The sound was small, paper ripping, nothing. But in that marble lobby under those high ceilings, it echoed like something breaking that couldn't be fixed. She tore it again, smaller pieces, and again. Terry watched. He couldn't move. His body had locked up the way it does when something so wrong is happening that your brain refuses to process it in real time. It just records, stores it, plays it back later when you're alone. Pieces of paper fell onto the counter, blue and white fragments. He could see pieces of his name, half of the T in Terrence. Blackwell split between two scraps, numbers, account numbers, the routing number, the amount, all torn apart and scattered like confetti, confetti made from his daughter's future. Patricia brushed her hands together. One quick motion. Done. There. Problem solved. Nobody in the lobby moved. Nobody spoke. The businessman's smirk was gone. The older woman had her hand over her mouth. Even the tellers, the ones who'd been watching with detached curiosity, looked shaken. Darius Webb had taken a step back. His hand had dropped from his belt. His face said everything his mouth didn't. Terry stared at the pieces. His hands were shaking. He put them in his pockets. That was my check. His voice came from somewhere far away, somewhere outside his body. That was evidence of fraud, and I disposed of it accordingly. Company policy allows me to confiscate and destroy fraudulent instruments to prevent them from being reused. It wasn't fraudulent. In my professional judgment, it was. Your professional judgment is wrong. You're welcome to file a complaint. A complaint? He almost laughed. Almost. You just destroyed $10 million of my money and you're telling me to file a complaint. I destroyed a fraudulent instrument. There's a difference. She straightened her jacket, smoothed her hair, already moving on, already rewriting the story in her head, the story where she was the hero, where she'd saved the bank from a con man in a worn-out jacket. You're lucky I'm not pressing charges. Terry looked at her, really looked, and he saw it clearly. She believed every word. This wasn't cruelty for the sake of cruelty. This was certainty, absolute airtight certainty that she knew what she was looking at, that she could read a person's worth from the outside in, that the world was exactly as simple as she needed it to be. That was the worst part, not malice, conviction. I earned that money. I'm sure you believe that. I can prove it. With what? More fake documents? He didn't answer, because what was left to say? That he'd spent 2 years and 4 months coding in the dark while his daughter slept? That the contract was real but designed for deniability? That he was exactly what he looked like? A man barely getting by until 3 days ago when a wire transfer changed everything? That the proof was in pieces on her counter? Nobody would believe that. Nobody in this room. Not today. Patricia turned to the security guard. Thomas, walk him out. We're done here. Darius approached. Slower this time. He touched Terry's elbow. Gentle, almost apologetic. Sir, let's go. Terry looked at the counter one more time. The pieces of the check were scattered across the marble surface. He tried to memorize what he could see. Fragments of account numbers. The escrow bank's name split across 2 torn pieces. Half of his own signature. Then he turned and walked toward the door. The crowd parted. Nobody touched him. Nobody spoke to him. Nobody met his eyes. He was a story now. Something that had happened to someone else. Something they'd talk about later in safe, comfortable rooms. Terry pushed through the brass-handled door and stepped out into the afternoon sun. Behind him, he heard Patricia's voice, bright and clear and in control. Everyone can return to their transactions. I apologize for the disruption. We take fraud very seriously here at Rivergate National. The door swung shut. Terry stood on the sidewalk. People walked past him. Cars moved through the intersection. A taxi honked. A woman jogged by with headphones in. The city kept going. The whole world kept going. He pulled out his phone, opened his banking app. The escrow account showed a 0 balance. The full amount had been drawn to issue the check that was now in pieces on a marble counter inside a bank that wouldn't let him back through the door. 0. He put the phone away and started walking. Didn't know where, just away, 3 blocks, 4. His legs moved and his brain ran the same loop over and over. 2 years and 4 months. Every night after Amara fell asleep, every weekend, every hour of every day he'd spent building something nobody would ever see, something invisible and unbreakable, and the payment for all of it was scattered on a counter like trash. He could call the fund, explain what happened, ask for another check. But they didn't take calls. That was the arrangement. That was the whole point. Anonymous. Untraceable. The contract was complete. Payment delivered. What happened afterward was his problem. He'd signed papers acknowledging that. He'd accepted the risk. This was the risk. He stopped in front of a coffee shop. Through the window, people sat at tables with laptops, students studying, a man reading a newspaper. Normal life. Normal problems. The kind of problems you solve with a phone call or a form or a conversation with a reasonable person. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Patterson. Amara's fine. We're making cookies. Take your time. He typed back. Thanks. Be there by 6. Another buzz. Electric company. Overdue notice. $57. A month ago, $57 was a crisis. $57 meant choosing between heat and groceries. $57 meant lying awake at night doing math that never worked out. Today, what should have been today, $57 was nothing. A rounding error. The check would have cleared in 2 days. The money would have hit his account. Real money. The kind that erases every small panic, every late notice, every 2 a.m. calculation. But the check was gone. Terry sat down on a bench at a bus stop. Empty. Nobody waiting. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and stared at the sidewalk. A crack in the concrete ran from his left boot to the curb. He followed it with his eyes, counted the smaller cracks branching off it. 9. Stupid thing to notice. Stupid thing to count. He thought about going back, walking into the bank and demanding they pay for what they destroyed. But what would that get him? Patricia was certain she was right. The bank would back her. He'd need lawyers, documentation, months of fighting. And lawyers cost money he didn't have. 13 days until rent was due. Amara's shoes needed replacing now. His laptop, the one he'd used to build a $10 million system, was dying. The battery lasted 38 minutes. The fan sounded like a leaf blower. He needed it for work, for whatever work came next. If work came next, he thought about Amara. What he'd tell her. Nothing, probably. She didn't know about the check, didn't know about the contract, didn't know that 3 days ago their lives had changed. She just knew that Dad worked late and sometimes fell asleep at his computer and always packed the same lunch and always said, "I love you" at the bus stop. That was enough for her. She never asked for more. But she deserved more. She deserved everything he'd been trying to give her. And now it was gone, destroyed by a woman who'd taken one look at him and decided he was nothing. His phone showed 3:47. If he caught the 4:11 train, he'd be home by 5:42. Enough time to make dinner. Maybe they'd watch a movie. Amara liked the old animated ones. She'd seen them all 100 times but always wanted to watch them again. He could do that. He could sit on the couch and watch a movie and pretend that everything was fine. He was good at pretending. He stood up, brushed off his jacket, started toward the train station, then stopped. A black town car was pulling up in front of the bank. Professional driver. The kind of car that costs more per hour than Terry made in a day. The back door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-50s, gray suit, burgundy scarf. She moved with the kind of authority that doesn't announce itself. It just exists. She didn't pause on the sidewalk, didn't check her phone, didn't look around. She walked straight to the bank entrance like she owned the building and every building around it. The glass door opened before she reached it. Someone inside had seen her coming. She disappeared inside. Terry stood on the sidewalk 40 feet from the bank entrance. His train was in 24 minutes. Amara was making cookies. Mrs. Patterson was waiting. He should go. He should catch his train, go home, hold his daughter, eat burnt cookies and figure out tomorrow when tomorrow came. But his feet didn't move. Something in his gut, the same instinct that had told him to answer that forum posting 2 years and 4 months ago. The same instinct that had told him the contract was real when everything about it said it shouldn't be. That instinct told him to wait. So he sat back down on the bench and he watched the bank entrance. And he waited. 5 minutes passed. The afternoon light shifted. Shadows stretched across the sidewalk. People walked by without seeing him. Same as always. Same as everywhere. Terrence Blackwell. Invisible. He was about to give up, about to stand and walk to the station and leave this behind him forever. His hand was on the bench, pushing himself up. The bank door opened. The woman in the gray suit stood in the doorway. She wasn't looking at the street, wasn't looking at traffic. Her eyes moved across the sidewalk, searching, and they found him. She walked toward him, steady, deliberate, no hesitation. Terry stood up. She stopped 3 feet away. looked at him the way nobody in that bank had looked at him all day, like he was a person. "Mr. Blackwell?" "Yes. My name is Victoria Ashford. I'm the regional director for Rivergate National Bank." She extended her hand. He took it. Her grip was firm, practiced, but not cold. "I believe there's been a serious problem today. You could say that." Victoria Ashford didn't flinch at the edge in his voice. She'd heard worse, seen worse. Spent 23 years cleaning up messes that started exactly like this one, with someone making a judgment call based on the wrong information and doubling down when they should have backed off. "Would you mind coming back inside? I think we need to have a conversation." Terry looked past her at the bank. Through the glass doors, he could see the lobby. Same marble floors, same counters, same place where 10 minutes ago a woman tore his life apart and called it protocol. "I'm not sure that's a good idea. I understand your hesitation completely, but I give you my word, things are going to be handled very differently this time." "How did you know what happened?" "The security guard, Darius Webb. He called me directly 20 minutes ago. Said something about the situation felt wrong and thought I should know immediately." Darius, the guard who'd hesitated. The guard who'd said, "Sir, let's go," with an apology in his voice Terry hadn't expected. The guard who'd touched his elbow like he was escorting a person instead of removing a problem. Darius had picked up the phone. "Miss Brennan destroyed my check." "I know. She accused me of fraud in front of everyone. I know that too, so why would I walk back in there?" Victoria didn't blink, didn't soften her expression, didn't try to sell him anything. She spoke the way people speak when they're telling you the truth and don't care if it's comfortable. "Because what happened to you was wrong, and I can't fix it from out here." A bus pulled up to the stop behind them. Doors opened. Nobody got off. The driver looked at Terry. Terry waved him on. The doors closed, the bus pulled away. "One condition. Name it. She doesn't touch anything related to my account. Not today. Not ever." "That won't be a problem." "Why not?" "Because as of 3 minutes ago, Patricia Brennan no longer works at Rivergate National." The words hung between them. Terry searched her face for performance, for politics, for the kind of corporate smoothness that means nothing and fixes nothing. He didn't find it. "You fired her. I began termination proceedings. They'll be finalized within the hour because of what she did to me, because of what she did to a customer, because she violated 6 different protocols, because she destroyed property that wasn't hers to destroy, and because she made a judgment based on appearance instead of facts." Victoria paused. "That's not how we operate. Or at least it's not how we're supposed to." Terry looked at the bank one more time. Same stone building, same brass handles. But something had shifted. He could feel it. "Is she still in there?" "In my office with HR on speakerphone." "Does she know you're out here?" "She knows I left the room. She doesn't know why." "What did she say?" Victoria's expression changed. Just barely. The ghost of something cold, that there must be some mistake, that I don't understand what happened, that she was protecting the bank. She really believes she was right. Most people do. Victoria gestured toward the entrance. "Will you come back in, Mr. Blackwell?" "I can't fix what she broke if you don't." Terry thought about Amara, about cookies, about going home and letting this become a story he told no one. But then he thought about the way Patricia had looked at him, the certainty in her eyes, the smile before she tore the check. And he thought about the next man who'd walk into that bank wearing the wrong jacket, carrying something real and get treated like nothing. "Okay." They walked to the bank together. Victoria held the door. Terry stepped through. This time, everyone in the lobby noticed. The lobby was fuller now. End of workday crowd, lines at every teller window, conversations humming under the high ceiling. But when Terry walked in beside Victoria Ashford, the humming stopped. Not all at once, it traveled. The teller nearest the door saw them first. She nudged the woman beside her. That woman looked up. Then the customer she was helping turned. Then the next one. Like dominoes falling in slow motion, silence spread across the lobby until the only sound was the quiet hum of the air system and the click of Victoria's heels on marble. The businessman was still there. Same spot, same suit. He recognized Terry immediately. His face did something complicated. Surprise, then discomfort, then the careful blankness of a man who doesn't want to be noticed. The older couple was still there too. The woman grabbed her husband's arm, squeezed, and Patricia Brennan was standing near the management office. Red-faced, a man in a cheap suit beside her. HR, most likely, tablet in hand, already taking notes. She'd been mid-sentence when the door opened. Her mouth was still half-formed around a word she never finished. She saw Terry and something moved across her face that wasn't fear, wasn't guilt, wasn't regret. It was anger, pure, hard, uncut anger, because he was back, because whatever she thought was over wasn't over, because the man she'd dismissed was standing in her lobby next to the one person in the world she answered to. Victoria didn't slow down. She walked straight to Patricia, stopped 3 feet away. "Miss Brennan, I believe you know Mr. Blackwell." Patricia's jaw was a straight line. "I've already explained the situation to—" "You'll have your turn to speak. Right now, I need you to listen." The words were quiet, not a whisper, not a shout, the exact volume of someone who doesn't need to raise her voice because everyone is already paying attention. "Mr. Blackwell came into this bank approximately 1 hour ago. Is that correct?" Patricia stared at her, then at Terry, then back. "Yes, and he presented a check for deposit, a fraudulent check." "I didn't ask you to characterize it. I asked you to confirm that he presented a check." Patricia's hands curled into fists at her sides. "Yes, he presented a check. And what did you do with that check?" "I confiscated it, as is my right under—" "You destroyed it." Silence. Patricia's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. "You tore up a customer's check, in front of your entire staff, in front of customers, without verifying its authenticity, without conducting any actual investigation, without contacting the account holder, without completing even the most basic fraud assessment protocol." Victoria took 1 step closer. "I called the issuing bank. You called. They confirmed the account was active. And then you decided that wasn't enough." Victoria's voice stayed level, stayed calm, but there was steel underneath. "Why?" Patricia looked around the lobby. Every face was turned toward her. Tellers, customers, Darius by the door, the HR rep with his tablet. She was the center of something she couldn't control, and Terry could see in her eyes the exact moment she realized it. Because it didn't add up. What didn't add up? The check, the amount, the person presenting it. None of it made sense. What about the person didn't make sense? "Look at him." Patricia gestured at Terry. Open palm like she was presenting evidence. "He's wearing a jacket with holes in it. His boots are falling apart. He came in here with no account, no appointment, no identification beyond a driver's license. And he tried to deposit $10 million. You're telling me that doesn't raise a single red flag?" "I'm telling you that red flags require investigation, not execution. I investigated. You made 1 phone call, then you made a judgment, and those are 2 very different things." Patricia's face had gone from red to white, the blotchy, uneven white of someone whose blood pressure is climbing by the second. "I used my professional experience. 15 years in banking. I've seen fraud. I know what it looks like." "What does it look like?" "What? Fraud. In your professional experience, what does it look like?" Patricia hesitated. She felt the trap, but she couldn't see it. "It looks like someone who doesn't belong, someone whose story doesn't match their circumstances, someone who—" Someone who's poor. That's not what I... Someone from the West Side. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating them. You told Mr. Blackwell in front of this entire lobby that he didn't look like someone who has $10 million. Those were your words, not mine. Patricia's mouth thinned. I said what I observed, and what you observed was a man's clothing, his shoes, his address, and you used those observations to destroy his property and accuse him of a felony. Victoria turned to Terry. Mr. Blackwell, would you mind showing Miss Brennan what you showed me outside? Terry pulled out his phone, opened his email. The wire transfer notification was at the top, dated 3 days ago. Below it, the contract summary. Below that, the completion certificate from the escrow company. Every piece of documentation clean, time-stamped, verifiable. He held the phone out, not to Patricia, to Victoria. Victoria took it, read the screen, handed it to the HR rep. He studied it, scrolled through the emails. His face went pale. The slow, sick realization of someone who understands exactly how much trouble is standing in this lobby. This is legitimate. His voice was quiet, almost to himself. Patricia reached for the phone. Let me see that. The HR rep pulled it back, held it away from her. That could be faked. Anyone can mock up an email. Anyone can create a fake transfer notification. You can buy templates online for Miss Brennan. Victoria's voice cut clean. Stop. I'm trying to explain. You're trying to justify. There's a difference, and every word you say is making this worse. Patricia went quiet, but her eyes were burning. Terry had seen that look before, the look of someone who knows they're wrong but will die before they admit it. Not because they can't see the truth, because admitting the truth would mean admitting what they are. And that's a door most people will never open. Victoria turned to the security guard. Darius, could you come here, please? Darius walked over. Slow, measured. He stopped beside Terry, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Whether that was intentional or not, Terry couldn't tell. But he felt it. You were present during this entire interaction. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Tell me what you saw. Darius straightened. He didn't look at Patricia. He looked at Victoria. Mr. Blackwell entered the bank at approximately 2:47 p.m. He waited in line. When he reached the counter, Miss Brennan took over the transaction from the assigned teller. She questioned Mr. Blackwell about the check. He answered every question calmly and cooperatively. He offered documentation. She refused to review it. She called the issuing bank, confirmed the account was active, then declined to proceed with further verification. And then, she told him the check was fraudulent. He asked to speak with the supervisor. She refused. He asked her to complete the verification. She refused. She instructed me to remove him from the building. Did you? Darius paused for the first time. He looked at Patricia, then looked away. I escorted him to the door. Yes, ma'am. And the check? The pause was longer this time. Miss Brennan tore it up in front of everyone. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in the air did. In your professional judgment, Darius, did Mr. Blackwell behave in any way that suggested fraud, aggression, deception, anything at all? Darius shook his head slowly. No, ma'am. He was the calmest person in the building, didn't raise his voice, didn't make any threatening movements, didn't resist when I escorted him out. He asked for his property back and was denied. He stopped, then added something nobody expected. I've worked security for 11 years, 6 in the military, 5 in private sector. I've seen people try to pass fraudulent checks. I've seen con artists and I've seen thieves. Mr. Blackwell wasn't any of those things. He was a man trying to deposit a check and he was treated like a criminal because of the way he was dressed. Darius met Victoria's eyes. That's why I called you. The lobby was dead silent. Terry felt something move through his chest, not pride, not vindication. Something rarer than that. Gratitude. The kind that hurts because you didn't expect it. Because you'd already accepted that nobody was going to stand up. Darius had stood up. Victoria turned back to Patricia. Would you like to respond? Patricia was vibrating. Terry could see it. A fine tremor in her hands, a tightness in her neck that made the tendons stand out. She looked at Darius like he'd betrayed her. Looked at the HR rep like he'd abandoned her. Looked around the lobby at the customers and tellers and saw what she really was in that moment. Alone. I was doing my job. Her voice cracked on the last word. I was protecting this bank. I was protecting these customers. Do you know how many fraud attempts we get every month? Do you know what happens when one gets through? I'm the one who answers for it. I'm the one who gets called into the regional office and asked why I let a fake check clear. I'm the one who... You're the one who tore up a legitimate check worth $10 million. Victoria's voice was still calm, still level, but the steel was closer to the surface now. You're the one who publicly accused an innocent man of a felony. You're the one who made a judgment based on a jacket and a pair of boots instead of doing your job. My job is to use judgment. Your job is to verify, to investigate, to follow protocol. Your job is to serve every person who walks through that door, regardless of what they're wearing, where they come from, or what they look like. That's not my opinion. That's Rivergate National Policy. Page 1, paragraph 1. Patricia's eyes were wet, not from sadness, from rage, the kind of rage that comes when the walls close in and there's nowhere left to go. If he'd been wearing a suit, if he'd driven up in a Mercedes, you wouldn't be standing here. Nobody would. I would have processed that check and everyone would have moved on with their day. But because I raised a concern, because I did my due diligence on someone who didn't fit the profile. Profile. Victoria repeated the word like it was evidence. What profile exactly? Patricia didn't answer. Say it. You've been dancing around it for an hour. You said it to Mr. Blackwell. You said it in front of 30 witnesses. Say it now. Patricia's chin lifted, something defiant, something broken. People who have $10 million don't look like that. They don't come from the West Side. They don't wear second-hand jackets. They don't walk into banks without accounts. That's not judgment. That's reality. The words fell into the lobby like stones into water, and everyone felt the ripple. Victoria nodded slowly. Thank you. That makes this much easier. She turned to the HR rep. Final termination effective immediately. Cause: destruction of customer property, violation of verification protocols, discriminatory conduct, and gross misconduct. The HR rep started typing. His fingers moved fast. He'd been ready. Patricia's face collapsed, not the slow crumble of realization, the sudden violent fracture of someone who thought they were standing on solid ground and just felt it give way. You can't do this. I can and I am. I have rights. Union protection. I've given this bank 12 years, all of which will be explained to you in detail by HR. Right now I need your employee badge, your keys, your access cards. This is insane. Your badge, Miss Brennan. I was protecting the bank. You were protecting your assumptions. There's a difference. And that difference cost this bank a customer's trust, a legitimate transaction, and now a 12-year employee. Victoria held out her hand. Your badge. Patricia stared at her. 5 seconds. 10. The lobby held its breath. Terry watched her face cycle through everything. Denial, anger, bargaining, fury, all of it compressed into a few heartbeats. Then she reached inside her jacket, pulled out a lanyard with an ID badge, slapped it into Victoria's palm so hard the sound echoed. Keys next. Patricia dropped them, didn't hand them, dropped them into Victoria's open hand like they were poison. Then a security access card slid across the counter with 2 fingers. Your personal items will be packed and delivered to your home address. You are not to return to this building. Any questions regarding severance or final compensation should be directed to HR. 12 years. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper now. I gave 12 years to this bank. And in one afternoon you threw away every bit of goodwill you'd built. Patricia flinched. Actually flinched like the words were physical. She looked around the lobby one last time, at the customers who'd watched her manage this branch for years, at the tellers she'd supervised, at the brass fixtures and marble floors that had been her domain. She was looking at all of it the way you look at something you'll never see again. Then her eyes found Terry. I hope you're happy. Terry looked at her. This woman who'd destroyed 2 years and 4 months of his work, who'd called him a fraud in front of strangers, who'd torn apart his daughter's future and called it procedure. I'm not. I just wanted to deposit a check. Something in his voice hit her. He saw it land, a flicker in her expression, fast, almost invisible. Not guilt, not apology, but maybe for 1/2 second the beginning of understanding. The first hairline crack in the wall she'd built around her certainty. Then it was gone. Darius. Victoria's voice was quiet. Please escort Miss Brennan out. Darius walked to Patricia. He didn't grab her arm, didn't rush her. He touched her elbow the same way he'd touched Terry's an hour ago. Gently. Ma'am, this way. They walked toward the door. The lobby watched. Every customer, every teller, the businessman who'd laughed, the older couple who'd stared, all of them watching the cost of being wrong walk across that marble floor in heels. The glass door opened. Patricia stepped through. Darius followed. The door closed behind them and Patricia Brennan was gone. The lobby stayed quiet for 3 full seconds. The longest 3 seconds Terry had ever counted. Then Victoria turned to the room. I want to apologize to everyone who had to witness that, but I also want to be very clear about something. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Rivergate National Bank serves everyone. Everyone, regardless of how you're dressed, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what you look like. That is not a policy. That is a promise. She pulled business cards from her jacket pocket, started handing them to people. If you ever feel that you've been treated unfairly in any branch of this bank, you call me directly. My personal number is on this card. I will answer. The older woman took a card. Her hand was trembling. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. The businessman took one too. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. He put the card in his pocket and went back to his teller window without a word. Terry watched him go. An hour ago, that man had laughed. Now he couldn't look up from the floor. People started moving again, slowly, the way a room restarts after a power outage, one thing at a time. A teller cleared her throat. A keyboard started clicking. Someone coughed. The hum came back, cautious and low. Victoria turned to Terry. Her face was calm, controlled, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not exhaustion, not satisfaction. Something heavier. I have paperwork for you. Complaint forms, incident reports, and we need to discuss the check. How long? The paperwork? Maybe an hour. The check? She pulled out her phone, typed something, waited. I've already contacted the escrow company. A replacement will be issued and delivered by secure courier tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, I'm told before 10 a.m. A senior manager from our downtown branch will handle the deposit personally. I'll introduce you before you leave today. Terry pulled out his phone, texted Mrs. Patterson. Going to be later than expected. I'm sorry. Response in 12 seconds. No problem at all. Amara and I are having a tea party. She made me wear a tiara. Take your time. He put the phone away, looked at Victoria. Okay, let's do the paperwork. She led him across the lobby, past the counter where the pieces of his check were still scattered. Nobody had cleaned them up. Little white and blue fragments on dark marble. Pieces of his name, pieces of numbers, pieces of everything that was supposed to change. Victoria stopped, looked at the pieces, looked at Terry. I'll have those collected and preserved, for the record. For what record? The one that proves what happened here today, so that no one can pretend it didn't. She held the door to a private office open. Terry walked through. Behind him, a teller quietly began sweeping the torn pieces of the check into an envelope, handling each fragment like it mattered, because it did. Every piece of it mattered. The office was smaller than Terry expected. No massive desk, no leather chairs, just a conference table, 4 chairs, and windows that looked out onto 5th Street. Victoria didn't sit behind anything. She pulled a chair around and sat across from Terry. Face to face, no barrier between them, no power position, just 2 people in a room with a closed door and the weight of what had just happened pressing down on both of them. First, I'm sorry. You already fired her. That's more than most places would do. It's the minimum, not the maximum. She set a tablet on the small table between them. What happened to you today should never happen. Not here, not anywhere. And I don't say that as a corporate line. I say it as a person who just watched the security footage of a woman destroying a man's property and calling it policy. You watched the footage. Darius told me what happened on the phone. I pulled the footage before I came outside to find you. 4 cameras in the lobby. Every angle, every word, so you saw everything. I saw a man wait in line patiently, answer questions he shouldn't have been asked, stay calm when anyone else would have lost their temper. And I saw a branch manager tear up a $10 million check because she decided a man in a worn jacket couldn't possibly deserve it. Terry leaned back in his chair. His body was tired. The kind of tired that isn't about sleep. It's about holding yourself together so tight for so long that when the pressure finally eases, you realize how much it was costing you. The check. What happens now? I've already been in contact with the escrow company, Meridian Capital Holdings. Terry's eyes sharpened. He hadn't told her the name. He hadn't told anyone the name. Victoria noticed. The security footage captured the check clearly enough to read the issuing institution. My team contacted them directly. They've confirmed the transaction, confirmed your identity as the payee, and they're issuing a replacement check. They talked to you. They were reluctant at first. Anonymous escrow accounts tend to involve people who prefer not to be contacted. That's the point. I understand. But when I sent them the security footage, when they saw what happened to their check, to their client, they became significantly more cooperative. You sent them the footage. I did, along with the incident report, the termination paperwork, and my personal guarantee that the replacement would be handled by me and only me. She paused. They were not happy, Mr. Blackwell. Not with us. Can't blame them. Neither can I. She turned the tablet toward him. A video was paused on the screen. The lobby from above. He could see himself at the counter. Patricia across from him. The check between them. This footage has been preserved on 3 separate servers. A copy has been sent to you via email. It's yours. For your records, in case I want to sue, that's your right, and if you choose to, the bank will not contest it. We'll settle fairly and quickly. You're telling me I could sue Rivergate National and you'd just pay? I'm telling you that what happened today was a clear and documented violation of your rights as a customer. Destruction of property, discriminatory treatment, public defamation. Any attorney in the state would take this case and any jury would rule in your favor. She folded her hands. I'd rather resolve this between us. But the choice is yours. Terry stared at the frozen image on the tablet. Himself, small figure in a big lobby, Patricia's hand on the check, the moment before everything broke. I don't want to sue. Victoria blinked. It was the first time he'd seen her composure slip, even slightly. No, no. May I ask why? Because lawsuits take years. They eat your time, your energy, everything. I'd spend the next 18 months in depositions and courtrooms and meetings with lawyers, reliving today over and over, And the whole time, Amara, my daughter, she'd have a father who's angry, who's fighting, who comes home every night wound up about something she doesn't understand. He shook his head. I don't want to be that father. I've spent 2 years and 4 months working so she could have a better life. Not so I could spend the next 2 years being bitter about the day it almost didn't happen. Victoria studied him for a long moment. The way you study something you didn't expect to find. That's remarkably generous. It's not generous. It's practical. I have a daughter who needs new shoes and a refrigerator that sounds like a diesel engine and an apartment where the heat works about 60% of the time. That's what I need to focus on, not revenge. It wouldn't be revenge. It would be justice. Maybe, but justice doesn't keep you warm in January. Victoria almost smiled. Almost. It was there for a half second and then it was gone, replaced by something more serious. Then let me ask you this. What do you want? Right now? From us? From me? If it's not a lawsuit, what would make this right? Terry thought about it. Not for long. He'd been thinking about it since he sat on that bus stop bench and watched his banking app show zero. I want the check. I want to deposit it. I want an account at this bank. Not because I love this bank, but because I walked in here today and I'm going to finish what I came to do. And I want to know that the next person who walks through those doors looking like me gets treated like a human being. Done. All of it? The check will be here tomorrow morning. I'll have a senior account manager assigned to you today. Someone I trust personally. Your account will be open before you leave this building. And as for the last part, she leaned forward slightly. I'm implementing a full review of this branch, staff retraining, updated verification protocols, and I'm personally auditing every customer complaint filed at this location in the last 3 years. 3 years? If Patricia Brennan did this to you, she's done it to other people. People who didn't have a Darius to make a phone call. People who walked out that door and never came back. The words hung in the room. Terry hadn't thought about that. He'd been so focused on his own situation, the check, the money, Amara, that he hadn't considered the others, the ones before him, the ones who'd walked into this lobby carrying something real and walked out carrying nothing because a woman behind a counter decided they didn't look right. How many of them had there been? How many people had Patricia dismissed, turned away, humiliated? How many of them went home and told no one because who would believe them? Who would care? I want one more thing. Name it. Darius, the security guard. What about him? He made the call. He's the reason you're sitting here. He's the reason any of this is happening. And he did it knowing it could cost him his job. In my experience, when someone at the bottom calls out someone at the top, the person at the bottom usually pays for it. Not this time. You say that now, but a month from now when the attention's gone and the reports are filed, somebody's going to remember that the security guard went over the branch manager's head. And that's going to be a problem for him. Victoria looked at him. Something shifted in her expression. Respect, maybe. The recognition of someone who understands how systems actually work. Not how they're supposed to work, how they work. What would you like me to do? Protect him, whatever that looks like. A transfer if he wants one. A promotion if he deserves one. At minimum, a note in his file that says he did the right thing today and the bank is better for it. I'll do more than that. I'll make sure he knows it came from you. No. Terry shook his head. Don't tell him it came from me. Just do it. He doesn't need my name attached. He just needs to know that doing the right thing doesn't come with a punishment. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. You're an unusual man, Mr. Blackwell. I'm a tired man with a daughter who's waiting for me. That's all. Victoria picked up her phone, pressed a button. Send Mr. Thorne in, please. The door opened 30 seconds later. A man walked in, mid-60s, silver hair, reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck. He moved slowly but with intention, the way people move when they've been doing something for a long time and don't need to rush anymore. His handshake, when he offered it, was warm. Both hands. Mr. Blackwell, my name is Graham Thorne. I'm a senior account manager from our downtown branch. I've been briefed on what happened today, and I want you to know I'm embarrassed. Personally embarrassed. This is not the bank I've spent 32 years building. It's not your fault. Maybe not. But it's my responsibility. From this moment forward, I'm handling your account personally. When your check arrives tomorrow, I'll process it myself. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket. Cream-colored. Simple. Just a name and a phone number. Here's my direct line. You call me for anything, questions, concerns. If someone looks at you sideways in any branch of this bank, you call me and I will handle it. Terry took the card, ran his thumb across the printed name. Graham Thorne, direct line. Thank you. It's my pleasure, sir. Sir, that word. The same word Patricia had used like a weapon. The same 2 syllables she'd aimed at him like a slap. But from Graham Thorne, standing in that office with his reading glasses and his warm handshake and his 32 years of doing this job the way it should be done, from him the word landed differently. It landed the way it was supposed to land, with weight, with respect, with the simple human acknowledgement that the person standing in front of you matters. Terry felt it in his chest, a loosening, something that had been clenched since the moment Patricia held up his check and said, "This is a joke." Something deep and tight and heavy, released. Not all the way, not completely, but enough. Enough to breathe. Let's get your account set up. Graham pulled out a chair, opened a folder. Inside were forms that looked like they'd been printed 5 minutes ago. They probably had. I'll need your ID, a few signatures, standard intake. Should take about 20 minutes. That's it? That's it. No interrogation, no background check on your wardrobe. Graham's eyes crinkled at the corners, just paperwork. They went through it page by page. Graham explained every form, every clause, every fee structure. He didn't rush, didn't condescend, asked Terry if he had questions, waited for answers, treated the process like what it was supposed to be. A service, not a test. When they finished, Graham gathered the papers, tapped them straight on the desk, slid them into a folder with Terry's name written on the tab in careful handwriting. Accounts active. When the check arrives tomorrow, we deposit it. Standard hold for large deposits is 5 business days, but given the circumstances, I've spoken with Victoria and we're expediting clearance. You'll have full access to the funds within 48 hours. 48 hours, at most, likely sooner. Terry nodded. He didn't trust himself to say more than that because 48 hours meant Thursday. Thursday meant Amara could have new shoes by the weekend. Thursday meant he could pay the electric bill and the rent and maybe start looking at apartments in neighborhoods where the heat worked all winter. Thursday meant everything. Graham stood, extended his hand again. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Mr. Blackwell. I'll be here at 9. I'll be here at 9. Good man. Graham smiled. Genuine. The kind of smile that comes from someone who still believes in doing things right. He left the office and closed the door softly behind him. Terry sat alone for a moment. The room was quiet. Through the window he could see the street, people walking home from work, headlights beginning to come on, the city shifting from afternoon to evening. Victoria came back in. She had more papers, incident report, formal complaint, a statement for the bank's internal investigation. You don't have to file these, but I recommend it. For the record that proves what happened, the record that makes sure it doesn't happen to someone else. He signed everything, read every word first. Victoria didn't rush him. When he had questions, she answered them. When he hesitated over a paragraph about potential legal remedies, she waited. Take your time. This isn't a deadline. This is your story, your story. Something about the way she said it. Not the incident, not the situation, your story like it belonged to him, like it mattered beyond policy and protocol and corporate liability. When they were finished, it was 7:15. Almost 4 hours since he'd first walked into this bank with an envelope in his jacket pocket. 4 hours that had contained more than some years. Can I ask you something? Sure. When she was accusing you, when she was tearing up the check, you didn't fight back. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't threaten her or demand anything. You just stood there. Victoria's voice was careful, not judgmental, curious. I know. Why? Terry was quiet for a long time. He looked at his hands, working hands, the calluses on his fingers from years of typing. Not the glamorous kind of callus, not guitar strings or rock climbing, keyboard calluses, the kind nobody notices. Because they'd already decided who I was. Margaret, the people in line, the businessman who laughed, all of them. They looked at me and they saw what they expected to see. And nothing I said was going to change that, not in that moment. But you were right. Being right doesn't help when everyone in the room has already made up their mind. Terry met her eyes. I've been in rooms like that my whole life. Job interviews where they've decided before I sit down. Parent-teacher meetings where they talk to me slower because of the way I'm dressed. Stores where someone follows me down the aisle because I don't look like I can afford what I'm touching. You learn after a while that arguing with a closed mind is like talking to a wall. The wall doesn't move. You just lose your voice. Victoria set down her pen. That's a hard way to live. It's the way most people live. We just don't talk about it. For what it's worth, and I know it's not worth much right now, you shouldn't have to live that way. Not in my bank, your bank. What about the grocery store, the school, the apartment complex, the DMV? Every other place where someone takes one look and decides what I am? I can't fix all of those. I know. But I can fix this one. Then fix it. Not for me. I got lucky. I had Darius. I had you. The next person might not have either. The next person who walks in here carrying something real, something they worked their whole life for and gets told it's fake because they're wearing the wrong shoes. Fix it for that person. I will. You say that now, and I'll say it a year from now and 5 years from now, because I watched that footage, Mr. Blackwell. I watched a woman tear up a man's future and smile while she did it. And I've been doing this job for 23 years, and I've never been more ashamed of what this industry can produce. Terry stood up. His knees ached. His back was stiff. He'd been sitting too long, standing too long, holding himself together too long. I need to get home. My daughter's waiting. Of course. Victoria stood, walked him to the door. The car service is still available if you'd like a ride. I'll take the train. You sure? I'm sure. I took the train here. I'll take the train home. That hasn't changed. Victoria nodded. She understood what he was saying, not just about transportation, about identity, about not letting one afternoon turn him into someone different. He'd walked into this bank as Terrence Blackwell, a man who took the train and packed his daughter's lunch and wore a jacket with a worn collar. He was going to walk out the same way. She led him through the lobby. Quieter now. Most of the customers had gone. A few tellers were closing out their registers. Darius was back at his post by the door. As Terry passed him, Darius straightened, nodded. Mr. Blackwell. Terry stopped, looked at the guard. This man who'd done his job all day, stood at his post, followed orders, escorted Terry out when he was told to, and then picked up his personal phone and called the one person who could make it right. Not because it was his job, because it was right. Darius, I'm glad you came back. I almost didn't, I know. That's why I called. They looked at each other. Two men who didn't have much in common on the surface. Different jobs, different lives, different sides of the lobby. But in that moment, they understood each other perfectly. Thank you. Darius shook his head. Don't thank me for doing what everyone in this building should have done an hour ago. Terry extended his hand. Darius took it. Firm, solid, the handshake of men who mean it. Victoria was waiting by the door. I meant what I said earlier. If you change your mind about legal action, call me anytime. The bank's legal team will work with you, not against you. I appreciate that. And Mr. Blackwell, she paused. Something in her voice shifted, softer, less corporate, more human. I'm sorry you had to teach us this lesson. You shouldn't have had to. Terry looked at her, at Darius, at the lobby where his check had been destroyed and his dignity questioned and his worth measured by the stitching on his jacket. Just make sure the next person who walks in looking like me doesn't have to teach it again. I will. I promise you that. Terry pushed through the brass-handled door and stepped into the night air. The city was darker now, streetlights on, car headlights moving through the intersection. The temperature had dropped. He pulled his jacket tighter, the same jacket, the same collar, the same man, and started walking toward the train station. His phone buzzed. Amara. Mrs. Patterson says you're on your way. We saved you cookies. 4 exclamation points. She always did that when she was excited. He could see her sitting on the couch, phone in her hands, legs swinging because they didn't reach the floor yet. Cookie crumbs on her shirt, that gap-toothed smile she'd have for another year before the adult teeth came in. He typed back, "Can't wait." 3 dots appeared. She was typing. "Love you too, Daddy." He hadn't said it first. She just knew. Terry put his phone in his pocket, walked into the train station, caught the 7:45 home. He stood the whole way, held the rail with one hand, phone in the other, reading Amara's texts. She'd sent 3 more in the time it took him to walk from the bank to the station. "We made chocolate chip and peanut butter. Mrs. Patterson burned 1 batch, but don't tell her I said that. How many cookies do you want me to save you?" He typed back, "All of them. Daddy, that's like 20 cookies. I'm very hungry, okay? But I already ate 4. He smiled. The train rocked gently. Outside, the city was falling away, buildings shrinking, the glass and steel giving way to brick and tired storefronts and streetlights that flickered every third one. The West Side, his neighborhood, the place Patricia had said like a diagnosis. He put his phone away and closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids, the day replayed. Not all of it, just moments. The sound of paper tearing, the pieces falling, Patricia's smile, the businessman's laugh, Darius saying, "Ma'am, this way," Victoria's hand extended, Graham Thorne's card in his pocket, the word "sir" twice in one day, 2 different people, 2 completely different meanings. The train pulled into his station. Doors opened. He stepped onto the platform. Cold air hit him. He pulled his jacket tight and walked the 3 blocks home. Mrs. Patterson opened the door before he reached it. She was a stout woman in her 60s, silver hair. Reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She'd been watching Amara after school for 2 years and 4 months. Terry paid her what he could. She took it whether it was enough or not. "There he is. Amara's been checking the window every 5 minutes. Sorry I'm so late. Don't apologize. We had a wonderful time. She taught me a card game I'm fairly certain she invented the rules for as we went along." "That sounds about right. She's in the living room. Fair warning, there's flour on the ceiling. Don't ask me how." Behind Mrs. Patterson, a small figure appeared in the hallway. Brown hair, ponytail half undone, cookie crumbs on her shirt, her chin, somehow in her eyebrows. She saw him and her whole face opened up. That pure, unguarded joy that only children can produce. The kind that doesn't hold anything back because it hasn't learned to yet. "Daddy!" She ran at him full speed, hit him at the waist and squeezed. He picked her up. She was getting too big for this. 47 pounds and growing. And his back protested. But he did it anyway. He held her and she wrapped her arms around his neck and he stood there in the doorway holding his daughter. and everything that had happened that day, every single moment of it, compressed into something small and hard and distant, because this was real. This was what mattered. The rest was noise. "We made so many cookies, Daddy, I heard. Mrs. Patterson says you're a natural baker. Mrs. Patterson is a very smart woman. Are you hungry? You look hungry, starving. Good, because I saved you a whole plate." He set her down. Mrs. Patterson tried to refuse payment for the extra hours. He insisted. She took it the way she always did, like she was doing him a favor by accepting. "Terrence." She was looking at him with that expression she sometimes got, the one that said she saw more than he thought she did. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look like you've been through something." "Long day." She studied him for another moment, then nodded. "You know where I am if you need anything." "I know. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Good night, Terrence." She left. The door closed and it was just him and Amara. The apartment was small. It was always small. But tonight it felt different. Tonight, knowing what was coming tomorrow, knowing that within 48 hours his account would hold more money than he'd ever imagined. The smallness of this apartment didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a cocoon, the last night of something. The end of one life and the beginning of another. "Daddy, cookies now." "Yes, ma'am." They sat at the kitchen table. Amara had arranged the cookies on a plate with a kind of deliberate artistry that 8-year-olds bring to things that matter to them. Chocolate chip on the left, peanut butter on the right, a gap in the middle where the 4 she'd already eaten used to be. "Try the chocolate chip first. Those are the best ones." He picked one up, bit into it, warm, sweet, slightly burnt on the edges. The chocolate chips were unevenly distributed. Some bites had 4, some had none. It was, by any objective standard, an imperfect cookie. It was the best thing he'd tasted in 2 years and 4 months. Perfect. "Really? Really? Mrs. Patterson said we use too much butter. There's no such thing as too much butter." Amara grinned. She picked up a peanut butter cookie and took a bite. Chewed thoughtfully. "Daddy?" "Yeah? How was your day?" The question hit him somewhere unexpected. Not the words. Amara asked him that every night. But tonight, with everything that had happened still sitting in his chest like a stone, the simple kindness of his 8-year-old daughter asking how his day went nearly broke him. He looked at her. Cookie in her hand, crumbs on the table, that gap-toothed smile, complicated. Good complicated or bad complicated? He thought about it. Really thought about it. Both. It started bad, got worse, and then it got better. What happened? Grown-up stuff. You always say that. Because it usually is. Was it scary? He paused. A little bit. Yeah. But you're okay? I'm okay. Good. She held out a peanut butter cookie. "These fix everything." He took it. She watched him eat it with the intense satisfaction of a chef observing someone enjoy her work. Then she hopped off her chair and went to the living room. He heard the TV click on, the opening music of one of her animated movies. The one about the fish. She'd seen it 100 times. She'd watch it 100 more. "Daddy, come on. It's starting." He cleared the table, put the remaining cookies in a container, wiped down the counter. Normal things, routine things, the small mechanical actions that hold a life together. Then he went to the living room and sat down on the couch. Amara immediately pressed herself against his side, her head on his arm, feet tucked under her. Within 10 minutes, her breathing changed, slowed. Her body got heavier. The cookie in her hand tilted. He caught it before it fell. She was asleep. Terry sat there. The movie played. Colors moved across the screen. He wasn't watching. He was looking at Amara's face, the way her eyelashes rested on her cheeks, the way her mouth was slightly open, the small scar on her chin from when she'd fallen off her bike last summer and he'd carried her 6 blocks to the urgent care because he couldn't afford an ambulance. He thought about what Victoria had asked him. "Why didn't you fight back?" Because they'd already decided who I was. That was true. That. But it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was harder to say, even to himself. He didn't fight back because of Amara. Because every choice he'd made for the past 4 years and 9 months had been about her. Every decision filtered through one question. What does she need? She needed a father who came home, who didn't get arrested in a bank lobby, who didn't make a scene that ended up on someone's phone and then on the internet and then in a courtroom. She needed a father who could walk away from something wrong and still walk towards something right. So that's what he did. He walked away, and then he walked back. And the difference between those two walks was everything. He picked up his phone one-handed, careful not to wake Amara, opened his email. The footage from Victoria was there. 4 video files, 4 camera angles, subject line, incident documentation, Rivergate National Bank, confidential. He didn't open them, not tonight, maybe not ever. He didn't need to relive it. He'd been there. Below that, another email from an address he didn't recognize. Meridian Capital Holdings, the escrow company. He opened it. Mr. Blackwell, we have been informed of the incident involving your payment instrument at Rivergate National Bank, Stonebridge branch. A replacement check has been issued and will be delivered via secure courier to the Stonebridge branch tomorrow morning, May 11th, by 9 a.m. We sincerely regret any inconvenience and wish to assure you that the full amount of $10 million remains allocated and confirmed. Please contact us if you require any additional documentation. It has been a privilege working with you. A privilege working with you. From people who had never met him, who communicated only through encrypted channels and anonymous contracts. Even they, people whose entire business model was built on invisibility, even they had reached out. Even they had said, we see you. What happened to you was wrong. And two, he closed the email, put the phone down, looked at Amara. Hey, sweetheart, time for bed. She stirred, mumbled something. Didn't open her eyes. He picked her up, carried her down the short hallway to her room, laid her on the bed, pulled the covers up. Her room was small, just big enough for a twin bed, a dresser, and a bookshelf he'd built from scrap lumber. The bookshelf leaned slightly to the left. He kept meaning to fix it. He tucked the blanket around her shoulders. She rolled onto her side, pulled the covers to her chin, sighed. That deep, full-body sigh that children make when they're completely safe and completely comfortable and don't know enough about the world yet to understand how rare that feeling is. Daddy? Eyes still closed. Yes, sweetheart. Are we okay? The question came out of nowhere, or maybe it didn't. Maybe she'd felt something today, some vibration in the air, some shift in the frequency of their small life. Kids sense things. They don't always have words for it, but they feel the current change. We're okay. Promise. Promise? Promise. Okay. She pulled the blanket tighter. Love you. Love you too, Amara. More than you know. I know, Daddy. I always know. Her voice was already fading. She was asleep in seconds. He stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. Counted 5 breaths, 10. Then he pulled her door almost closed, leaving the crack she liked. Just enough light from the hallway to keep the dark from being total, and walked back to the kitchen. He sat at the table. The apartment was quiet. The refrigerator hummed its diesel hum. A car passed outside, headlights sweeping across the wall and disappearing. The kitchen faucet dripped 1 drop every 4 seconds. He'd been meaning to fix that too. He pulled Graham Thorne's card from his pocket, set it on the table, cream-colored, simple, a name and a direct number. He put Victoria Ashford's card next to it. Then he pulled out the overdue electric bill. $57. Set that beside the cards. 3 pieces of paper on a kitchen table. One represented a man who treated him with respect. One represented a woman who'd fought for him. One represented the life he'd been living. The $57 life. The counting every dollar life. The life where a utility bill could keep him up at night. Tomorrow that life would begin to change. The check would arrive. Graham would process it. Within 48 hours, the money would be in his account. Real money. The kind that doesn't just pay bills, it erases the fear behind them. The fear of the phone ringing. The fear of the envelope in the mailbox. The fear of Amara asking for something and the answer being no. But tonight, the money wasn't here yet. Tonight, he was still the man in the worn jacket. Still the guy on the west side with $41 in checking and an electric bill he couldn't pay. And that was okay. Because that man, the one Patricia Brennan had looked at and dismissed, the one the businessman had laughed at, the one the older woman had pulled her purse away from, that man had built something extraordinary. Had raised a daughter who saved him cookies and asked if he was okay and said, "I love you," without being asked. Had walked into a place that didn't want him and walked out with his dignity intact. The money would change his circumstances, but it wouldn't change who he was. And who he was, who he'd always been, was enough. He picked up the electric bill, looked at it one more time. $57. Overdue, past due, final notice. He set it down and almost laughed. $57. In 2 days, he could pay that $57 10,000 times over and not feel it. But tonight it was still the difference between heat and no heat. Tonight it was still real. He left it on the table. He'd pay it Thursday, along with everything else. He cleaned up the kitchen, washed Amara's cookie bowls, wiped flour off the counter and, yes, somehow off the ceiling, put the cookie container in the cabinet, turned off the lights. He walked to his bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed he'd sat on that morning at 5:32 a.m., staring at the water stain on the ceiling, getting ready for a day he thought would be simple. Walk in, deposit a check, walk out, come home, make dinner, watch a movie. Easy. Nothing about this day had been easy. He lay back, stared at the ceiling. The water stain was still there, boot-shaped, 16 months and counting. He wondered if after Thursday he'd have it fixed, or if he'd move to a new apartment, one without water stains, one with heat that worked, one with a bedroom for Amara that was big enough for a desk where she could do her homework without spreading it across the kitchen table. He could do that now. He could do anything now. But right now, in this apartment, in this bed, with his daughter sleeping 20 feet away and cookies in the cabinet and a phone full of texts with too many exclamation points. Right now, he didn't need anything else. He closed his eyes. He thought about Patricia. Not with anger, not with satisfaction. He thought about her walking out of that bank, Darius at her elbow, her badge gone, her keys gone, 12 years gone. He wondered where she'd driven. Whether she'd gone home and told someone what happened, whether she'd told them the truth or the version of the truth where she was the victim. She'd land on her feet, people like Patricia always did. A few months from now, she'd be managing another branch or selling real estate, or running some operation where her confidence would be mistaken for competence. She'd tell the story differently. I was let go for following protocol. I was fired for doing my job. She might even believe it. People can convince themselves of almost anything when the alternative is looking in the mirror and not liking what they see, but maybe, and Terry knew this was generous, knew it was probably naive, but he held on to it anyway. Maybe there would be a moment. A random Tuesday, a slow afternoon, she'd be standing in line somewhere or sitting in traffic or lying in bed at 2 a.m. when the defenses are down and the brain won't stop replaying things. And she'd see his face, she'd see the pieces of the check on the counter. She'd hear herself say, "This is what I think of fraud." And for one moment, just one, she'd feel the weight of what she did. Not guilt, Patricia Brennan might never get to guilt, but maybe discomfort, maybe a crack in the certainty, maybe the beginning of a question she'd never thought to ask. What if I was wrong? That would be enough, not for Terry, for the next person. He thought about Darius, standing at his post all day, watching, saying nothing until saying nothing wasn't possible anymore. then picking up a phone and changing everything. No reward waiting, no guarantee it would work. Just a man who saw something wrong and decided he couldn't live with not trying to fix it. The world was full of Patricia Brennans. Terry knew that. He'd known it since before he could name it. But the world also had Darius Webbs, people who stood quietly in the background and then stepped forward at the exact moment it mattered. You couldn't always see them. You couldn't always find them. But they were there. And sometimes when you needed them most, they made a phone call. He thought about Victoria, about Graham, about the teller who'd swept the torn pieces of his check into an envelope, handling each fragment like it meant something. Because it did. He thought about Amara, about tomorrow morning, about packing her lunch, peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, juice box, and walking her to the bus stop. The other parents would be there. Clean cars, nice coats. They'd nod at him the way they always did, polite, distant. They wouldn't know that the man in the worn jacket was about to deposit $10 million. And he wouldn't tell them, because it didn't matter. It had never mattered. The jacket was never the point. Amara would hug him, say, "Love you, Daddy," climb the steps, wave through the window. And then he'd take the train back into the city, walk into Rivergate National Bank, shake Graham Thorne's hand, deposit the check, and walk out. Same man who walked in, same jacket, same boots, same hands that packed school lunches and wrote his daughter's name on brown paper bags and built something worth $10 million while the world slept. Just a father, just a man, nothing more and nothing less. Terry reached over and set the alarm for 5:30. Then he turned it off. He wouldn't need it. His body would wake him at 5:32. Same as always. 2 minutes early. 2 minutes that belonged to him before the day belonged to everyone else. He pulled the blanket up. The apartment was quiet. Down the hall, Amara breathed in the slow, steady rhythm of a child who knows she is safe. The refrigerator hummed, the faucet dripped, a siren wailed somewhere far away and faded into nothing. Tomorrow the check would come. Tomorrow the money would clear. Tomorrow everything would change, but tonight, this night in this small apartment with flour on the ceiling and cookies in the cabinet and a daughter who'd saved him a whole plate and said, "I love you," without being asked. Tonight was enough. Tonight was everything. Terry closed his eyes, and for the first time in 2 years and 4 months, he fell asleep without wondering if he'd made the right choice, without calculating how many days until rent was due, without lying awake doing math that never worked out. He fell asleep knowing that the choice he'd made, to walk in, to stay calm, to hold on to his dignity even when someone tried to take it, had been the right one. Not because it got him the money. The money was always going to come. The contract was fulfilled, the work was done, but because it taught him something he'd always known but sometimes forgot. That your worth isn't written on your bank statement. It's not stitched into your collar or stamped on your address. It's proven in how you stand when the world tries to make you kneel. And tomorrow morning when he walked into that bank and placed a check on that counter and looked Graham Thorne in the eye, he'd be standing exactly the same way he was standing today. Head up, shoulders back. The same man he'd always been. The same man he'd always be. And that, more than the $10 million, more than the new apartment or the new shoes or the heat that worked all winter, that was worth everything.